We take a look at the proposed fiscal 2016 operating budget on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Wednesday, May 20th, 2015. I'm Sarah Colvin. The fiscal 2016 budget is ready for viewing this Thursday. Town Council will hear first readings on budget requests, and public hearings will begin on June 4th. Barnstable Director of Finance Mark Milne joined us on today's edition of Barnstable this morning with an overview of the proposed budget.
Well, we're looking at an operating budget of close to $178 million next year for the town's general fund and enterprise fund operations, and that's about a 3.9% increase over the previous fiscal year. Combine that with the capital program and our budget, capital program of over $25 million, and our total budget is breaking $200 million next year. So pretty substantial budget, but it's a very strong capital program this year.
Absolutely. A 3.9% increase, is that typical, or is that a higher than normal increase that we're looking at this year?
No, that's typical. That's around the where we've been on average for the past several years. One factor that is driving that up, and maybe a fraction of a percentage, a little bit more than average, but one reason why that's closer to 4% is the significant snow removal costs we incurred in fiscal year 15, which we are including in the fiscal year 16 budget. So our actual budget for snow removal in fiscal year 16 is close to $3 million, or is over $3 million.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been 2 tough years in a row for us when it comes to snow removal, and we try to provide DPW with the resources they need in order to meet their snow removal protocols, and it's a very expensive program, especially when we have winters like we did this past year.
Absolutely, and let's hope that that was the worst one we're going to have for quite some time. We don't have to deal with that, but you know what? We never know.
No, we never do know. So we can't count on that being a recurring operating cost. So, which is one of the reasons why we fund it the way we do, using our reserves in anticipation that this is not something that's going to happen on a recurring basis. So
absolutely. So as I'm looking over, Mark, the town manager's introduction to the fiscal 2016 budget, I note that obviously one of the priorities is finance, of course, keeping our financial base strong and firm, but I do see that you're looking to add some financial transparency software that will let people kind of explore the way in which their dollars are used. Can you talk a little bit about that software?
Sure. This is a new feature that Tyler Technologies has come out with, as well as many other software companies are now pushing this as well. But we use the Munis Financial Software Package, which is a product of Tyler Technologies, and they have a new module that they're rolling out, and we're going to explore the implementation of this. And it allows the citizens to interface. There's a web interface where they can go in and they can review year-to-date budget reports for any operation, public works or education, public safety, for example, and they can see how budgets are trending for the fiscal year, as well as the revenue side too. We can see how how our tax receipts are coming in compared to what our revenue estimates are. And there's also a feature in there that allows you to see the actual spending by vendor, so you can see, how much vendors are being paid for particular services. So it's like an open checkbook type of application that they're developing, and we're looking at implementing that next fiscal year as just an add-on additional layer to the Munis system that we use.
Absolutely, and certainly people are curious, and it's always that transparency in government, transparency in finance always helps to kind of ease the minds of our citizens to be able to take a look and say, okay, I can see where that money is being spent.
Yeah, it could have a downside too. You may end up answering a lot of phone calls, and people may ask, why this particular vendor got paid $10.
Right.
I mean, so you take the good with the bad, but overall, when you think about it, it's actually in the spirit of full transparency. This is something I think where government agencies are going. I wouldn't be surprised 5 years down the road from now that it's a mandatory feature that that the state requires all municipalities to do. So the software vendors that we use are catching up with that and developing these modules to allow this transparency for citizens.
Absolutely. So when are you hoping to make that available to the public, or is it already?
No, it's going to be. We haven't even purchased the module yet, so. If the money's appropriated, we'll start with the implementation in the first quarter of the fiscal year, with hopefully having it ready to go by the end of the second quarter of the fiscal year.
Great. And of course, Mark, public safety too is also a big part of the budget, and making sure to fund some of the police operations I see as a key part of this fiscal 16 budget as well.
Yes, we have 2 new sworn officer positions being added to the budget. One officer is currently committed nearly full time to the regulatory services operation in their licensing and parking areas, and by dedicating that officer to that particular function, it takes away from the other services that the police department provides. So we're providing the police an additional officer to backfill, to replace essentially the full-time commitment that current officer is making to that operation, as well as another officer to add to the community impact unit, which will strengthen that unit, which has been very successful for the town. So there's the 2 new positions there, as well as a nice investment of $340,000 in capital outlay for the police, so that they can replace 5 marked cruisers, replace their sidearms, which are outdated, replace their AED machines, which have been outdated, as well as an infusion of technology equipment for their various technology that they have inside the police facility, so that we can get that up to speed, because that is all becoming dated as well. So we're providing a healthy infusion for the capital outlay to get that operation the equipment it needs to perform its duties.
Indeed, and of course, Mark, the schools are also a very large portion of the budget, and as our viewers know, the town and the schools work in partnership, with the budget, which is kind of unusual for this region, but of course, as you and our leaders have seen, has proven quite successful, that partnership of budgeting.
Yes, it has worked well for us. We have been able to prevent any surprises over the past several years in our school budgeting operations as a result. And we were recently asked by the Mass School Business Officers Association at their annual conference down here on the Cape last week to make a presentation as to how we go about doing this. And it was, I guess, received with a lot of skepticism by that group, as there's still this tremendous amount of distrust between school districts and town offices throughout the Commonwealth, and I think it's very difficult for them to comprehend what we do here, and that was evident by last week's presentation. But in the school operations, we're looking at about a 4.4% increase for next year, almost $3 million, and that includes there's a net addition of 3.8 full-time equivalents to the school department, and most of that's dealing with the MTSS program that the school department is providing more resources for.
Sure, the Early Learning Center, correct, as well?
Yeah, in the Early Learning Center as well is opening up, which will require some more resources.
Town Council will begin public hearings on the proposed budget on June 4th. In the meantime, you can view the entire document online. Just go to town.barnstable.ma.us. Well, be sure to tune in to our hour-long daily news program, Barnstable This Morning. We'll be on the air tomorrow with a full roster of guests, including our golf segment, Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority Administrator Tom Kerr, 5th Barnstable State Representative Randy Hunt, and Town Council President Jessica Rapp-Rossetti, all starting at 7 a.m. Thursday morning right here on Channel 18. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Colvin.